Hello there everybody, Sam Strains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to the very first running session of 2019. Now today I'm going to be doing a bit of a session with tiny tender locomotives, which is quite a nice name, and that's an idea that quite a lot of people suggested to me over 2018, so if you're one of those people, thank you very much for the great idea. Now when I was looking around my collection to choose the locos for this running session, I actually found that there weren't as many tiny tender engines as I thought, so don't be too disappointed if these aren't all tiny. I did think about maybe not doing this and just doing a different running session, but at the end of the day I thought, you know, even though they're not all that tiny, some of them are, some of them aren't, it's just really a good excuse to run some little engines. So even though they're not all that small, I hope you'll enjoy seeing them. Another thing is, I noticed that a lot of the smallest tender engines seem to be quite old, a lot of them from the 1800s and such, which is quite an interesting observation. Of course, there's nothing massively revelatory about that because, of course, they needed larger and more powerful steam locos as the railways grew and as time went on. But yeah, this is an exercise that has just demonstrated that really. So let's get to it then. If you like old-fashioned steam locos, if you like small steam locos, a little step larger though, of course, than the small shunters and such that I've been looking at recently, hopefully this will be for you. So let's get to it with the first loco, quite a strange one to start with, but I hope you'll enjoy seeing it. So let me show it to you. So, as you can see, I have set up some coaches here on the layout, and I thought it would be interesting to start this way and get people to sort of guess what locos might be involved. So pause the video right now before we go any further and let me know in the comments which locos you think are going to be coupling to these coaches. So we've got a couple of LMS coaches here, so some sort of LMS loco is on the way. Some Cornish Riviera coaches, which are of course Great Western coaches, so something like that. And then on the inside line here, we have some of these, which I believe are the Orient Express coaches. And I think I'm going to reveal that one first because I don't think you'll ever guess it. So here it comes now. Let me bring this first loco in for you. I have to admit, I don't know very much about it, which is why I'm doing it first and getting it over with. Yeah, here it comes. See what you make of it anyway. Try and get a nice steady coupling if possible, but yeah, it wasn't all that steady. Okay, so yeah, as I say, I'm getting this one over to start with because I don't know very much about it, I have to admit. So it is a French locomotive, I believe, from the SNCF. I'll talk more about that in just a second. But apart from that, yeah, it's quite an attractive 060. I'm sure any French people watching, if there are any, let me know in the comments once again. I'm sure they'll be cringing to see it coupled to such coaches. No idea whether they're prototypical or not. But yeah, it's a Rivarossi locomotive. It's tender driven, but it's a very good quality mechanism. I'll let this do a couple of laps of honour for you so that you can see it run, see it in action, and I'll be able to tell you the small amount of information I have been able to find. I think being an English person looking up stuff that's French doesn't help either because obviously I don't understand these things that come up. I don't speak French. So either way, I hope you enjoy seeing it running. It's quite an odd looking thing. Let's go forwards though. There we go. Okay, here we go with the SNCF 060 from France. So, as I say, I know very little about this. I believe it's known as a Class A 060 from the French SNCF, which is France's national state-owned railway. Unlike the UK, the French classify their steam locos by the number of axles, not the number of wheels. So that would make this an 030 in France, although of course here in the UK we'd know it as an 060. The SNCF was founded in 1938 when nationalisation occurred in France, similar to what happened here in the UK when we got nationalised, but 10 years later of course. And I believe this locomotive came from the PLM railway, but I can't be sure. If anybody knows more about these things, please do let me know or send me a link or something and I will read up and tell you more about it next time I show it. So there we go then. Even though I don't really know the first thing about it, it is at least a small tender locomotive, quite attractive as well. I don't know what you think about it. Let me know, I'll put up a poll. Is this thing your cup of tea or do you prefer the British stuff? Either way, I think it's been quite a nice change to see that. Regardless, so we're going to move now on to some more familiar territory with some British locos. So let's take another look at the coaches. I think first of all we'll grab the Great Western example. I think, I tried not to, but I think I did give it away accidentally in one of those shots you've just seen. So let's head over to the turntable then and get another tiny tender engine going, shall we? So this is the Great Western County class, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, that doesn't look too tiny. So yeah, I'm starting larger and I'm working into the smaller ones. Obviously though, there would have been better choices. If I was looking for Great Western 440s, I believe the Duke Dog was a little bit smaller, but I thought I'd pick this one just because I haven't run it for so long. So this is the County class. I'm going to get her off this turntable now and coupled to her coaches, and while I do that, I thought I would give you a little bit of history of the County class. So let's get this started. This is a Hornby Railroad model, by the way, so not all that expensive, but I do quite like them. So let's get it started then. So as a British loco, I know a bit better about where to look to find info on this one. So the County class, or the 3800 class, was designed by George Jackson Churchwood and introduced in 1904 to the Great Western, of course. They were designed for express passenger work, and they were produced for about 8 years up until 1912, and in total 40 were built overall. The Counties proved to be one of the final 440 designs used by the Great Western Railway, but sadly all of them were scrapped after the final withdrawal took place in 1933. Right, let's aim for a slightly smoother coupling this time. I've just looked at the footage from the last one and it was laughably poor. But yeah, this County looks a little bit better. It's a lot easier to control, this one. It's a lot more torque, I suppose, in the mechanism. Okay, so let's have a lap of honour from her then with the Cornish Riviera coaches. Just look at those coaches. I absolutely love those things. They're the old Airfix ones, but they still look great. And it really does look great, doesn't it? There's just something about these. I do love old pre-grouping locos in the first place, so that's probably one thing. But yeah, it's a 440. It's just a fun model as well, you know. It's not massively detailed or anything, but it does mean that it's a bit more inviting when it comes to choosing a loco to run, because you know that this one, you can handle it and you can touch it and it will be fine at the end of all that. And that makes a big difference, I think, to my enjoyment of certain models. So there we go, yes, a lovely run of that one, a lovely model all round really, especially for the price. We have the Hornby County. Let's just bring her to a stop there. And yep, that one was 3826 County of Flint, and what a lovely loco it is. And in real life they weighed in at 56 tonnes, so relatively light compared with the other locos that I've looked at on this channel, but now we're going to start getting lighter still. So let's take a look at the next loco. We've got some LMS coaches, so we know it's going to be LMS region of some sort, but let's get to it now then, and I will finally reveal what it is, although I'm pretty sure I've already spoiled the surprise. So this is a really, really handsome looking loco in a livery that I don't often choose for the running sessions, but I thought I would pick the LMS maroon version for this. So this is the Caledonian single wheeler, once again a really old-fashioned locomotive in real life. I'll talk more about that in just a second. This is considerably smaller and lighter than the County class. This weighs in at just 42 tonnes, so we're certainly getting smaller. But yes, I'm going to get her off the turntable now, and as I do, as you know, I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the Caledonian single wheeler. Quite an interesting history behind this one, so let's get started. So even though this Caledonian single isn't a particularly tiny tender loco, I wanted to include it because it was in fact in real life a unique locomotive built in 1886 by Neilson and Company to the design of Dougal Drummond for the Caledonian Railway, and it wasn't a class, it was just a single locomotive on its own. It had a single set of driving wheels which were absolutely huge. I think they were 7 feet in diameter, making her capable of almost 60 miles per hour. In the 1880s that was a highly impressive top speed. Now it was absorbed into the LMS in 1923, where she served as a 1P passenger loco in LMS Maroon, and yes, that's the way she's appearing in today's video, although of course Hornby/Trying did do the Caledonian Blue. And then she was retired from service in the 1970s, and she's now living in a museum at Glasgow Riverside, I believe. Once again, quite difficult to get a nice smooth coupling with that one, but hopefully that looked okay for you. With that then, let's get this, once again, very handsome loco running. Really do like this one. Not many coaches, of course, because she's only quite small with one driving wheel, so She can't manage a lot, but 2 coaches is just fine. And with that, I thought I would get the others running alongside her. So there we go then with the Great Western County class. More Great Western action coming later on, by the way. And also the unknown locomotive and the SNCF 060. Don't know much about it, but I certainly know that it's quite attractive. So let's have a quick run with these 3 then and see what you think. I think this is probably one of my best single-wheeler models. Even though it's going quite quick now, it doesn't have to go, 1,000 miles an hour like some of them do. I suppose I could get away with slowing it down a touch further, actually. I'll try that. Trouble is, if you go too slow, it begins to stop on the points. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it will manage at that speed. That's a bit more realistic. But as I say, they were quite fast for the time, so it doesn't hurt to have them racing along a little bit. Just not so fast that they derail. And they are capable of going that fast, believe it or not. French loco, again, quite a fast runner, that one. But not quite so bad as the single-wheeler, of course. Quite like it, though. It's definitely got something about it. I'll have to review that if you fancy it. Let me know if you'd like me to. There we go, Caledonian climbing the hill quite nicely. Fair bit of power in her, really, with 2 coaches. Doesn't struggle too bad. And then, of course, the County's cheating a bit because it has got a traction tyre. But still, it runs pretty well regardless. Alright, so I think we will leave it there for part 1 then, and when I come back I will get the really small locos out. So, be right back. I'm going to pop these away into their different sidings and things. Let's get one last look at the lovely County class before I do. There we go. Oh yes. So yeah, I'll be right back and we'll get on to the much smaller locos. So, here we go. Okay, so all of the first lot are now back into their sidings. As you can see, I've managed to cram them in here and there. And now we're going to get onto some of the locos that I would truly consider to be the tiny tank engines. So this next one is quite a bit smaller and quite a few tons lighter than the last. It is the J15. So we're hearing from the LNER at last. This one weighs in, let's see, at 37.7 tons. So yeah, quite a few tons lighter. And she's got a little train of goods with some LNER theming on those as well. So let's get her out of there. I just need to open this set of points and we will get her going on the inside line. And assuming she works okay, I haven't had this one running for a little while. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Great loco, this one. Great runner, great quality. So yeah, she's going. Let's have a little bit of history on the J15 then. What a lovely little class. So the J15 started life, once again quite an early one, in 1883 on the Great Eastern Railway when they were built at Stratford Works to the design of T.W. Worsdale. The class was intended for mixed traffic and they were extremely successful at it too, so much so that they continued to be built for another 30 years. A total of 289 were built overall, and though only one has been preserved. Now this particular example, which is number 7510, was withdrawn in 1956 and cut up during the same year, having worked since 1900, so that's a service life of 56 years. Okay, yes, always a pleasure to run the J15, definitely one of my favourite of the smaller tender engines. Okay, so there's a lovely close-up of her. She is number 7510 in the LNER Black. Absolutely love it. Okay, smaller still then. Let's move on to the next one and just see how small we can get today. Okay, so this next one is only fractionally smaller than the last. In fact, this one weighs in at 37.4 tonnes, so it's, a matter of 0.3 tonnes lighter than the J15. But as I said earlier on, we're going back to the Great Western, and here we are with the Dean Goods locomotive. Quite an attractive loco, especially in this pre-grouping Great Western livery. And she's going to be hauling, well, a mixed train, so there's a Great Western coach there, and then a little bit further back we've got some wagons, and if you can see just over the tree there's also a Great Western Toad. So hopefully quite a nice little train to see. I'm going to shunt her over onto the inside line where she'll do her running, so while I do that, here's a little bit of background on the lovely Dean Goods. So also known as the Great Western 2301 class, the Dean Goods was introduced in 1883 to the design of William Dean for goods work on the railway. The class was produced for over 15 years, and in that time a massive 260 were built. The class served for several years, and several were also sent to France during the First World War, and some even ended up in Salonika. By the time the Second World War broke out, many Dean Goods locos had been withdrawn, only to be dragged back into service later on when they were requisitioned by the War Department. Now, 54 of the class survived until 1948 when they were acquired by British Railways, and as time went by they were eventually replaced by the standard Class 2s, and the last was withdrawn in 1957, being 60 years old. Only one of the class has been preserved, and sadly the remainder were scrapped. Alright, so there you have it then, the Dean Goods. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing that. There's a bit of a close-up of quite an attractive loco. Okay, so we're very, very near the end, but the last one is really, really tiny. In fact, in terms of the weight, this final one is about approximately 10 times smaller than this Dean Goods. So it's hard to believe, I know, but let's go over to the turntable and I'll show you exactly which loco I'm talking about. So it is of course the Stephenson's rocket. You can't have a tiny tender engines running session without this one. So this really was one of the very first ever tender engines, and it was from a time where really steam locomotives were purely experimental. It wasn't clear that these would be the future at this point, but still Stephenson's rocket was built and there it is, and just for a little bit of a change I've put some wagons with it, just because I normally put its coach with it, but I thought why not change things up and do that. So the Stephenson's rocket weighs in at 4.3 tons. That is absolutely tiny, especially when the Dean Goods, as small as that was 37 tons. So this is the smallest by a very, very long way. Anyway, a little bit of history then for you on Stephenson's rocket as I get her out. So although lots of the locos I've looked at today have been very, very old, this is by far the oldest. This one was built in 1829 by Robert Stephenson and Company, and it was one of the first locomotives to be deemed successful. It won the Rainhill Trials in 1829, which was a competition where different engines competed to be chosen to run the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, I think it was. And it won, so obviously quite a success there. And as a result of that, it formed the basis of all steam locomotives to follow, more or less. It's still around today. It has lived at the London Science Museum, although I think it's moved since then. I'm not absolutely sure. It doesn't really resemble its old self though, as far as I know, although if you do want to see one in the yellow, as it would have appeared back in the 1820s or 30s, you can go to the NRM where there's a replica which looks just like it, and I like that one quite a bit better actually. Okay, well that is all of today's locos, so the only thing left to do now is let these last few have a run together. So there goes the Dean Goods, and of course the J15, and enjoy this final running session with them. Yeah, I've enjoyed that. I think that was quite a nice selection of locos, I reckon. And you've seen them all now as well too, so let me know in the poll which one was your favourite. I know it's always difficult to decide. It's very difficult for me as well. I reckon probably today it was a toss-up between the Rocket and the J15. I think I'd probably say J15. There we are. Such a good runner, that J15. Really, really good. Should get a nice passing here between Rocket and the Dean Goods. Rocket actually running quite nice and slowly today. Managed to get her in that sweet spot, which is good. Quite pleased with that. And if I just pan you around here, we should get the J15 again. Well, I think is probably my favourite of the day. For obvious reasons, it's a top quality model that. That Dean Goods is lovely as well. Runs quite well as well. I suppose it's probably my best Oxford Rail loco at the moment in terms of running, although I haven't, at the time of filming this, received the N7 yet, so we'll have to see what that's like. But yes, all very good running today. I've been pleased with all of their performances. And another thing, if you've got any ideas for similar running sessions I could do, if you've got any ideas for possible themes, do let me know, because I would like to do some different ones, and I know other people tend to have better ideas than I do. That's normally how it works. And there we go, there's Dean Goods. So yeah, quite enjoyed these. You see what I mean though about them all being quite old-fashioned? It's funny how it works out that way. Well then folks, that will just about do it for today. I hope you enjoyed the running session as always, and don't forget to let me know what you thought about it in the comments. But for now, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hope you like this just for a change. I'll be doing more reviews very, very soon, so tune in again soon for those. But for now, once again, thank you for your company, and I will see you very, very soon. Cheers everybody.